Hey guys, how is everyone doing out there? This is Tarkan back with another video. I just cracked myself up there before I hit record. Sometimes I do that, I crack myself up and then I go, hey wait, I'm doing a video, and I hit record on this little thing here, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Anyway, I don't even remember what I was laughing about, to be honest with you. Otherwise, I'd share it with you. But I don't remember. Anyway, I'm doing great. I hope you guys are doing all right out there. I've been playing outdoors as much as possible. Not always, being able to do so, but when I can squeeze it in, I've been doing so because we're wrapping up summer here. It's on its kind of last gasp. And, we're still having some hot weather this week. And then next week we're going to start transitioning, I think, into some more fall weather because autumn is approaching. And I love autumn. I even love saying autumn. Great word. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to cool, crisp weather and, colorful leaves and a golden October and wearing all my cool jackets and hats again and eating pumpkin spice things. Everything's going to taste like pumpkin spice, once October starts, I believe. I'm going to eat everything that tastes like pumpkin spice till it comes out of my ears. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a great summer, but it's been hot, and I'm tired of sweating, to be honest with you. So anyway, today I want to get into a comment that was left on one of my videos recently, and I believe it was within the past week or two. And the gentleman who left the comment, his name is 𝗙𝗿. Hi, Greg. I'm saying your name because you left it in a public comment, so I'm assuming you don't mind me using your name. And I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, 𝗙𝗿, right? So Greg has a question for me that's, I wouldn't say even difficult or even really that challenging, but it goes deep a little bit, okay? And as you can probably tell from the title of this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the ideas of grief and loss and around manifesting, all right? So I'm just going to read his comment, and then I'm going to get into what I'm going to say to you, Greg, and to all of you out there about the comment. So Greg writes, hey Tarkan, love the videos and words, you are one of the best. Thank you, Greg. I have a hard question for you. Well, let's see what we can do with that. The love of my life, my fiance, left me 18 months ago. And 4 months after she left, handing the rings back, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. I've been hoping to manifest my fiance back with limited success. She contacted me, unblocking me to do so in the first days of August as my mom worsened. Horribly, Mom passed away August 16th. Mom and I were big Elvis fans, and guess what? He also passed August 16th. Interesting. Sounds like your mom has a nice sense of humor. So my fiance has been very supportive, but previously, before Mom got ill, her last words were, never contact me again. So I know that it's my feelings, etc., that create. But how to remain positive while feeling like shit and grieving? All right, and that's a good question, Greg, and I'm sure a lot of people out there have that same question. And I wanna actually, talk about that last comment there, how to do that while feeling like shit and grieving. And I want to tell you something about this. First and foremost, and I've said this in other videos too, you don't necessarily have to feel positive all of the time. And this also ties in with what I've said in the past, that you don't need to 100% believe that your manifestation is coming, and that you if you doubt even just a little bit, or if you feel badly or negatively even just a little bit, you think it's a deal breaker. People tend to think that, and it's a misunderstanding, all right, of these concepts. I want that to sink in. You don't need to be feeling positive and optimistic and bouncing off the walls and doing cartwheels in the park 100% of the time, every single minute and day of your existence. First of all, it's not really the idea of what we're doing here, okay? You're going to have contrast. You're going to have challenges in life. It's a part of what we accept. when we manifest and focus ourselves into these physical existences, right? Into these ego identities, and we focus ourselves into this somewhat limiting environment, right? Where creating is going to be a bit challenging, okay? When we're focused back into the non-physical like your mom is right now, all right? From her perspective now, creating is instantaneous, okay? She thinks of something and boom, there it is, okay? She thinks of a person and boom, she's in front of that person, or that person is in front of her. So when we're focused in the non-physical, which by the way, the larger part of us, our higher being, is still there, right? When we manifest and focus ourselves into these physical existences, it's only a tiny fraction of that larger thing that we really are. So that tiny fraction that was your mom is really just refocused and reconnected with her higher self, basically, all right? So one of the reasons we come into this environment that seems so challenging, all right, is to learn to deal, to manifest within these challenging conditions. Within these conditions where there is a time delay, there's a time factor, okay? And also where there's a bit of a heavy kind of sense of constrictiveness, I want to say, right? We're in these kind of flesh and blood and bone bodies that we lug around with us every day, right? And we have to, okay, I got to go feed this spacesuit now, and I got to go, you know, oh, it's feeling a little warm, I need to get it somewhere cool, or it's a little cold, I need to put something on it, right? There's this sense of like, of from a soul's perspective, of being kind of constricted, of this being a relatively heavy environment. But of course, the idea here is not to be, you know, to have a difficult time or a difficult life. The idea here is to really reconnect with that larger part of ourselves. It's almost like when you lose something, you want to really appreciate it. You appreciate it more sometimes through the act of actually losing it, or through the sense of losing it. Sorry guys, I had to do a little bit of editing there because there was a huge truck backing up what sounded like into my room here, directly into my room. But no, that's not what actually happened, thank goodness. But it was pretty loud. So I interrupted the video for a second and let it do its thing. I think it's like the recycling truck or the trash truck or something. You can still hear it a little bit. So I closed the doors and the window, hoping to drown that out just a little bit. You know, it was doing that truck thing where it's like, so I don't want to sit here like this while you guys, you know, we're all waiting for the thing to finish. But anyway, so let me continue. Let me get into Greg's comment here, okay? Greg writes, "Hey Tarkon, love the videos and words. You are one of the best." Thank you, Greg. I have a hard question for you. Well, let's see what we can do with it, okay? The love of my life, my fiance, left me 18 months ago. And 4 months after she left, handing the rings back, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. My computer just went to sleep. What is going on? I had been hoping to manifest her back, my fiance back, with limited success. She contacted me, unblocking me to do so in the first days of August as my mom worsened. That's interesting. She cares about you still. Oh, look at that. Horribly, Mom passed away August 16th. Mom and I were big Elvis fans, and guess what? He also passed August 16th. Interesting. So my fiance has been very supportive, but previously, before Mom got ill, her last words were, "Never contact me again." It sounds a little bit like your mom's passing has helped facilitate a little bit of a connection between you guys. So I know that it's my feelings, etc., that create, but how to remain positive while feeling like shit and grieving? And that's a good question. I'm sure a lot of you have that question out there as well. Well, I want to get into that point, that specific question at the end there. Just first off the bat, I want to tell you, Greg, you don't need to be feeling positive and jumping off the walls and doing cartwheels in the park all the time in order to manifest what you want, okay? I want to dispel that misunderstanding right here and now, because I know, a lot of what you might read in blogs and hear in other videos and whatever is you got to feel positive all the time. You got to feel positive all the time. You got to believe 100% or what you want won't come. Okay, it's not necessarily that that's untrue or that being positive doesn't help you or doesn't make the manifestation process more efficient, right? Or that having a belief in your manifestation doesn't move you into that paradigm more quickly than if you're sort of doubting still and all that. I'm not disputing any of that, but what I'm saying is you don't need to be positive all of the time. Part of what happens when we manifest our lives here, and we manifest our lives and our identities, and our circumstances, we focus ourselves into these particular bodies, these roles that we end up playing within the framework of this environment, okay? And within the framework of this environment, as spiritual beings, we feel a little bit constricted, all right? But there's a purpose to that. There's a method to the madness. There's a reason we come into this sort of heavy kind of environment where every day we lug around these meat suits everywhere we go, and we got to cover them when they're cold and get them into air conditioning when they're warm and all that kind of stuff. But the idea is that coming into this environment helps us from a spiritual perspective to expand and evolve into even becoming even more adept at creating, even more aware of our power, our innate power. Because one of the best ways to appreciate something that you have, sometimes in a weird, twisted sense, is to lose it for a little while, or at least to have that sense of loss, and then to rediscover it. And when you rediscover it, there's a reunion with that part of yourself that feels amazing, right? So part of what we're doing here is part of what we come here to do involves the process of challenges, or what Abraham Hicks calls contrast. It's important to have these challenges. It's important to experience things in this lifetime that are unwanted. Because without the unwanted things, without those experiences, without those difficult, challenging parts, we never will be able to formulate new desires, right? Which then cause us to move into a direction of expansion. That's the whole idea of this thing. Your challenges bring forth new desires. Your desires, your pursuit of those desires through the manifesting process then causes you to expand. It causes you to grow more into your power, more into your self-awareness, awareness of who you really are, right? And to reconnect with that larger part of you, which is always calling you. It's always calling us back home. That higher self, that higher part of you, that larger part of you, that is still manifested in the non-physical. All right? You, Greg, and me, Tarkon, and all you guys watching out there, you're just these tiny little fractions of that larger self. Okay, and the moment you focus yourselves into this environment as Tarkon, as Greg, as Susie, as Bill, whatever it is, as Elvis, okay, as your fiance, what you're doing is throughout that entire existence, that higher part of you is always calling you back to itself. It's always calling you back. That little fraction, that little identity that you are. It's always calling you back to it. All right, to an understanding and a greater understanding of your true power and who you really are as a spiritual being. And it does so through the process, this process of this life that we go through. All right, we live through challenges, then we acknowledge those challenges. We acknowledge that we feel badly about them. Then we formulate a new desire. What would be the opposite of this challenge or this unwanted condition right now? What would make it better? You start solution-based thinking from that point forward. You start thinking of the opposite condition. Then you go, well, I guess that's what I want, right? If I'm feeling sad, I want a relief from sadness. If I'm feeling insecure, I want a feeling of security. That's also what I'm talking about when I talk about it's your feelings that create. Well, yes, it's your feelings that create, but it's your feelings or the feeling that you're after. That's what you're really after. That's really what causes you to expand into a greater, larger understanding of yourself. Okay, so these things happening, even your fiance passing, your fiance leaving you and your mom passing, this is all part of the cycle that we come here, that we agree to, sort of this contract that we agree to go through so that we can use these challenges as a springboard towards reaching back towards our higher selves. And when we reunite with that higher self, we have a much better understanding of ourselves, okay? And who we really are, and our true power and the true nature of these things. But it's always about expansion and evolution and forward movement, because we live in an expanding universe, and we're part of that universe. We're not a part of it, we are a part of it. So as a part of this expanding universe, we are also expanding. We need to be expanding, okay? We're like those sharks in the water. If we stop moving, we die, kind of thing, right? Now, so I want you to understand that first and foremost, you don't need to be feeling positive all the time to create what you want or to manifest what you want. But what you do want to do is feel your grief and your loss right now to its fullest extent, all right? Deal with it first. Deal with it first, and as you deal with it, as you let those emotions bubble up and even cry and be angry and go through the whole gamut of whatever the grieving process is, right? You can look it up online. I know there's steps to it. Go through all the steps. Allow yourself the permission to do that right now, okay? Don't worry so much about your fiance right now. Because once you've released that, for the most part, once you've allowed yourself to go through that grieving process, then you can go back and you can formulate a better understanding of what it is that you're really after here. So once you've dealt with that grieving process, allow yourself, first of all, allow yourself to go through the process, all right? Understand first and foremost, like I said, you don't need to feel 100% positive all the damn time, okay? Give yourself permission to let go of that idea right now, and give yourself the permission and give yourself the compassion to go through the grieving process right now. And once you've kind of gone through all that kind of stuff, okay, you've allowed yourself the time, the patience to move through this process, then you can go back and you can begin to look at both of these situations and the way in which they're related and what they both represent in terms of what you think and what you believe about yourself and the idea of loss, okay? Because so many times when you guys send me comments or emails, and even for the coaching sessions, I do my best to kind of read between the lines, okay? Because I know that the act of sitting down and writing it out, your questions or your comments in itself can also be quite cathartic, right? And give you quite a bit of clarity. But so often what happens is, or what I see my role as a coach and teacher being, is that I'm able to look at what you're writing objectively, all right? Without the emotional involvement in the situation that you're experiencing, all right? So I can look at it and I try to read between the lines as much as possible, okay? And so what I'm seeing here, Greg, and I want to touch on this next because this is something I really wanted to say to you. What I'm seeing here is a theme. There's a theme, there's a connection between this idea of losing your fiance and the idea of losing your mom, okay? And it has to do with your beliefs, your understandings around this concept of loss, all right? And your ideas and your understanding and your beliefs around the concept of feeling abandoned, all right? And that's what I see coming out of this, because it's interesting to me that you lumped these two things together into the same comment, because your question really is, your question was, how do I feel good while I'm feeling like shit because of my loss? But really what's going on here, what I really see your question as being, Greg, is you're saying, Tarkan, why do people keep leaving me? How do I deal with loss? What is it about being abandoned? Why do people keep abandoning me? Because in a sense, by lumping these two things together, it's not that the two events, that your fiance leaving you and your mother passing, are the same event, but the framework around which you're trying to digest these two things is the same. Your beliefs about these two things, the meaning you're applying to these two events is the same and comes from the same source, okay? So what you're dealing with here is your understanding of loss and your feeling, your sense, and a belief that you've adopted about yourself and practiced about yourself, that people abandon you, all right? And here's a big clue to this for me right away that jumped out from your comment, and it was in the choice of your wording. All right, and probably you did this on a subconscious level, but there's something in your subconscious that's trying to come out and ask the real question here and look at the real issue at hand here, okay? the love of my life, my fiance, left me. All right, so when you say left me, there's a sense of being abandoned, right? And then your mom passing, there's a sense of abandonment there too, all right? Because, you know, in reality, when we grieve, when a loved one has passed over, right, has gone back into focusing into the non-physical, reconnecting with that larger part of themselves, we don't ever really, it's not that we're grieving for that person, we're grieving for ourselves. All right, we see it as a loss, right? And then, of course, you know, when we look at it from a spiritual sense, there isn't really any loss that's happened here. Your mom hasn't gone away. She hasn't disappeared, right? She's moved out of your awareness, your physical awareness of her, right? Meaning that her body, she's moved out of focusing into her body. She's focused back into the non-physical. So, but from your perspective, from your belief about this, from what the meaning that you apply to this idea of, say, death, all right, is the idea that well, she's not there physically, therefore she's not there because I cannot perceive her anymore, okay? So you experience a sense of grief and a sense of loss, all right, for yourself. And that's okay. I'm not saying that that's a selfish act. We all do it. But really what we're grieving for is ourselves, because we have a sense, we have an idea, we have a belief that this person has disappeared and we have lost them in some sense, okay? That's an important thing to understand here, because that's going to lead you to this. And also it's important to understand the connection between that and the loss and the sense of loss that you have around your fiance leaving you, and the sense of abandonment that you have around these two events, all right? So you have the same grieving process probably going on regarding your fiance handing her rings back to you and basically physically disappearing from your life. So you're associating that same sense of loss with these two events, because your fiance disappearing is almost the same as her body disappearing from your perception, from your physical perception, from your ability to see her, to hear her, to touch her, right? To feel her. And the same thing is played out through the event of your mom passing over. So once you get to that understanding of these things, what you're really dealing with here, at the very core of this, when we peel away the onion layers, okay? And I'm going to get into the idea of how this ties into feeling, because you mentioned feeling. It's your feelings that create, yes, but I want to say more about that. What's happening here as we peel away the onion layers is that you have a belief going on at the core of you that has to do with your understanding of people passing out of your life physically. And it has to do with the idea of losing something, okay? So losing something, and also possibly tied into the idea and the sense of being abandoned, especially in the case of your fiance leaving, physically leaving you, and then handing back your ring and saying, hey, never talk to me again, okay? So that's kind of the idea that I was talking about earlier. There are two different events that represent a challenge for you, that represent contrast for you, that represent something unwanted for you, that feels awful. But they are, in fact, manifestations of something that you believe about yourself, that you feel very strongly about yourself. And my sense is that it has to do with your idea around your own worthiness, your own feelings of worthiness, your own feelings of deservedness, all right? And also feelings around the idea of losing, because we fear loss all the time. And so much of what happens, and so much of the reason I think that we, especially you guys out there in this audience of mine, and looking out and seeking out other videos having to do with manifesting specific people and exes back in your life, is you're dealing with the same sense of loss, right? And you're always afraid of losing something, because you feel, in a sense, what the fear comes down to is this understanding, or this innate fear that we're going to lose ourselves. We're going to lose our own identity, our own awareness of who we are, right? And that ties into the idea and the beliefs that we've formulated in our society, in our culture, and in ourselves regarding the idea of death, that there is an ultimate loss going on here. And that's so when I lose my mom, or when I lose my fiance, in that sense, the loss impacts me the same, right? Emotionally speaking, it impacts me the same. So from that point forward, when we peel away the onion layers, what you're dealing here with is your fear of loss, all right? And the idea that you have around the fact that loss is a given, it's an inevitable thing, and your fear around losing yourself, in a sense. Okay, these are just These are just outward. I hope I'm formulating this well for people to understand, because this is a little bit convoluted. It can come off as a little bit convoluted. But the idea of these people sort of physically exiting your physical awareness, right, ties into that, into you eventually leaving your own physical awareness, and the knowledge that you have that that's going to happen, right? In a sense, oh, that's a given. I'm also going to pass out of this physical awareness. What happens then, right? So I want to be sure I say this as well as I can, okay? Because it's important. There's no such thing as loss. Okay, and I said this, and I touched on this earlier when I said your mother just passed into a greater understanding of what she really did. Was she just reconnected with herself, with her larger self. She just became whole again. That's all it was, all right? This person that you knew as your mother, having that identity as your mother, as this woman with the name that she had, the physical characteristics that she had, and all of those things was just a fraction. It was just a tiny fraction of who she really is. And the same applies to you, right? The same applies to your fiance. Same applies to me. So there is never any real loss. In a weird sense, and from a spiritual perspective, when we come into this life, when we focus ourselves into this physical existence, that is the loss that we experience. The loss that we experience is the disconnection at the moment of birth between this fraction of our larger self and our larger self. And really, in a real sense, by going through everything we do in life, everything we strive for, and everything we're after is truly seeking a reconnection with that. Okay? Even you wanting a relationship where you can love someone and express love to someone is seeking a reconnection with the love that you want to express to yourself, and with the love that your higher self has for you innately, unconditionally, always, at all times, always been that way, will never go away. That love that your higher sense self has for you, okay? And in a way, seeking this love outside of ourselves through other people and our interactions with other people, and wanting to manifest somebody back so desperately so that we can love them and we can feel love for them, really those are just different expressions of our wanting so much to reconnect with the love we have for ourselves and our higher self. Does that make sense? So in a sense, everything that we seek out, really, we seek everything out because of something we want to feel. We want to feel a feeling. And I always say that, and this comes back to when you were asking me questions of feeling, okay? And I feel this is important to say. Everything that you want, whether it's money, good health, a relationship, a reconnection with somebody from the past, that car, that house, that vacation, right? Whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you desire, those things are just a symbol of what it is you're really after. And what it is you're really after is a state of being. Okay? Now you can, from that point of view, you can identify what that state of being is that you want. Okay? If you're dealing with issues of being abandoned, what you want is to be adored and loved. You want the security of that, right? You want the security of someone's going to love me and they're not going to leave. Okay? So then from that point on, you have an understanding of how it is you want to feel, and then you start to connect with that feeling. That's what you want to connect with. Not the symbol necessarily. Your fiance is just a symbol of that for you. And it's important for not just you, but for all of us, and for all of you out there watching and listening right now, to understand what it is you're really after, to get down to the kernel of it. Peel away the onion layers and look at the source of, first of all, of what it is that you're experiencing a disconnection from. Because it's not that you're experiencing a disconnection from your fiance right now, or a disconnection from your mother. You're experiencing a disconnection from yourself and from that larger spiritual part of you. That's what you're grieving about. That's what the difficulty is about in life. That's what we're always pining after. And we think it's the money. We think it's the love interest. We think it's the car and the house. We think it's all of that. But what it really is that we're experiencing a sense of loss of ourselves, or a sense of disconnection between us and that higher part of us. Basically, if you want to put it this way, we're experiencing that sense of disconnection between us and God. And God is what we always want to reconnect with, right? So all that we do around in this life here is that we bounce around from one experience to the other, from one person to the other, from one thing to the other, looking for God, looking for that reconnection. And the thing I want to say, and I said it in this very long-winded, convoluted way, I want to bring it back to this. There is never a loss. That's the real lesson here. That's the real thing to understand. You see, there is no disconnection between you and God. That disconnection between us and God isn't real. It's just an illusion. It's sort of a game that we decide to enter, okay? We're never really disconnected from that. We're never really disconnected from even the people in our lives. You're not disconnected from your mother. She hasn't gone anywhere. She's fully there. In fact, she's more whole now than she was when you knew her in physical existence, okay? That's one thing to really understand about that too. So the same thing happens. So when we sort of experience these losses, or when we become afraid that we're going to lose somebody, right? Your fear of losing your fiance is tied to your fear, again, of losing your mother. It's the same fear. It's the same grieving process. But really what it comes down to, again, is your sense and your fear that you're going to lose yourself, all right? Your identity. So, and I don't know what your personal beliefs are, or what religion you might have been brought up with, and what your sense is of the understanding of death and what happens to us after death. But I can tell you unequivocally, from my perspective and in my personal inner experience, there is no such thing. All right? The real loss that we experience is the loss we experience when we disconnect from God to begin with, our true source to begin with, when we come into this life. And that's the connection we're always chasing. Until we finally just get there. We're going to get there anyway. So there's really nothing to chase. But understand, it's important to look at this a little bit deeper sometimes and to get to the core of what's really going on here. Why do you want this person back so bad? Why do you want that car so bad? Why do you want that money so bad? To your mind, those are just symbols, right, of reconnecting with a sense of joy, a sense of wonderment, a sense of love, right? We think we're going to feel more love when we're back with that person. So really what it is that you're after is love. So when you understand, hey, I want love and I want the security of love, now that's what you practice yourself into feeling, okay? And the best way to do that is to reconnect with yourself. Love yourself and look at all of this and yourself as something that's never going to disappear, because you really had no beginning, so there's no end, right? Now our monkey minds can't wrap themselves around that concept. It's too difficult. But on a soul level, you do understand it. When you have those moments when you get quiet in yourself, you connect with that deeper understanding that you already have about this. You'll see that it's the truth and you'll feel it, all right? Sometimes you can sit quietly, take a few deep breaths, and just ask your inner being. Ask them, ask it, whatever. Do you love me? Do you love me? And see what happens. And I've done this in moments, and I, was so overwhelmed with this inexplicable feeling of warmth and acceptance and unconditional love. It just welled up right in my chest, that I burst into tears. Not because I was sad or even overjoyed at this feeling, but because it was such an overwhelming feeling. So the question of, do you love me, that I directed at my inner being, came back in the most overwhelming yes that you can possibly imagine, right? And I was just bursting at the seams when I sensed that, okay? You can do the same with your mother, by the way. You can do the same with your fiance. Is there love there? Are you still there, right? You can connect with your mother. You can speak to her. She's there, all right? She hasn't gone anywhere. And neither has your fiance, by the way. And neither have you, neither will you. So you can give yourself permission right now to be okay, to understand that there's never going to be a time when you will be lost, when you will cease to exist, when you will lose your identity or your awareness of yourself. All right, and you don't need to grieve for your disconnection between you and God, because that disconnection doesn't exist. All right, it's always there. The sense that you might have of that disconnection existing, that's really something that you're focusing on, but it's really just an illusion. Okay, it's not there. So look for that reconnection in yourself. Look for that reconnection in your quiet moments when you're meditating. Try that out. Try asking your inner being, hey, do you love me? Are you there? Are you watching out for me? See what you feel. See what you feel at that point. Your feelings are guiding you. It's guiding you constantly through your feelings, by the way. And I'm going to talk about that again. I know I did a video on your emotional guidance system, but I want to talk about it a little bit more deeper, because that's been coming up again as a theme in my coaching sessions. And I want to really get into that, because that is the way that your inner being, that is the way that God communicates with you, through your emotions. But I'll get into that later. But for the time being, to answer your very simple question in the most simple terms, Greg, and I'm sorry for the long-winded response, but I felt like this needed a little bit of a deeper, I needed to dig a little bit deeper here. First and foremost, don't worry about feeling positive all the time, okay? You can give yourself permission to grieve right now and go through the grieving process. And if you're having difficulty with that, I want to point out some things to you. I want to point out check out the Sedona method. Now, I'm not going to explain it really well here, but you know, that's a method that's very popular with dealing with emotions and sense of grief and that kind of thing. That will help you feel your emotions to its fullest, because that's really what it's about. It's okay for you to feel badly, and it's okay for you to feel sad, and really you can give yourself permission to say that really the two things aren't related in that sense, right? That just because you're feeling sad about your mother and losing your mother, or sensing the sense that you lost your mother because you didn't lose your mother, and wanting your fiance to be back in your life, are two different things. All right, you don't have to feel good about your mother passing in order to manifest your fiance. So that's also another thing I want to say about that. What you want to do really is feel these feelings to their fullest, and then hopefully I've helped you to kind of get to the core of something that you're really after. What is it that you're really after? What's the theme here? What's the overall state that you're really after? Right? The state of being loved, the state of feeling security in love, that love isn't going to leave the moment you have it, right? And so you need to reconnect with that deeper love that you already have, that's already there, all right? That you already have for yourself, and that exists between you and God, you and your higher being, your inner being, your higher being. I use them interchangeably because really they're the same thing, okay? So then that's why I always say focus on yourself, and why loving yourself is so important, because really that's the source of your love right there. You know, so many times we think we want love and we need to get it from somewhere outside of us. First of all, there is no outside of you. So there's nothing out there to chase, really. There's nothing out there to bring to you. All of that is already inside of you. So all it is that we're using these events and these desires, wanting my ex back, wanting this person, wanting the money in the car and whatever, and the good health, as catalysts, as symbols, to help us kind of formulate this love, or recognize this love that is already inherent between us. But it's really, those are just mediums. They're just sort of middlemen, right? You don't necessarily need them. But of course, when you're first starting out in this manifesting process, there's still that strong sense of needing that external factor to be there, to act as a medium, as an intermediary between you and the natural connection you already have with yourself and with God. All right, but in the end, the need for that will drop away as you become more and more masterful at this, as you practice this more and more, as you practice more and more self-love, and you do so despite what is happening or appears to be happening in your external reality. Despite that, you'll become better at recognizing that not only is it there this whole time, but it's always been there. There never has been a real disconnection. It's a complete illusion. And when that happens, when you're able to do that and recognize that, that's when your love starts rolling outward too, right? Unrestricted. And that's when there's going to be that communication between you and every being that you see. It's not just going to be you and the ex and the fiance, all right? It's going to be between you and the gerbil, the squirrel in the park, your dog, your friends, your other family members, the lamp. I love lamp, right? So I could talk about this forever, and there are so many levels to talk about here, so many things to touch on here that are very, very important. But I don't want this to be a 3-hour video, so maybe I'll talk about this again in a podcast episode, which I want to get back into doing. But for the time being, Greg, I want to say just allow yourself to grieve right now. And when you've moved past those stages of grieving, you're going to always miss your mom. That's okay. And again, I want to give you some resources to help you understand a little bit better about that. So try the Sedona method. Also, when you're speaking to yourself, your inner self, asking, "Do you love me?" you can also speak to your mother. Right? There's no disconnection between you and her either. There's no disconnection between you and I. There's no disconnection between you and the fiance. All right? Really, we're all just connected. We come into this environment under the illusion. We walk through this veil where we forget our connection. So we come under this illusion of the separation consciousness. And really, the trick is to find ourselves back to this unity consciousness. right? That's what we're here to do, so that we can appreciate it more when we do find our way back to it. So speak to your mom too. Connect with her. Say, hey mom, I'm feeling the sense of loss. I feel the sense of abandonment. Why don't you speak to me? Give me a sign. Let me know you're there so I can feel better about this. It'll happen. She'll communicate with you. In fact, she's probably here right now. She's probably watching this video right now. Maybe she's even in my head telling me all the right things to say to you, or she's interrupting my phone camera when I get off the rails a little bit too much. Maybe she's smacking me on the head going, hey buddy, get back on topic. Anyway, so I'm guilty of that, I know. Although some of you seem to like it when I do get off topic, but this is kind of how my mind wanders, okay? Because when I talk to you guys so often, I go, well, I'm going to do a 10-minute video, and then it's like 40 minutes because all these other things come into my head, and I go, oh wait, I got to say that, I got to say this. And then as I'm speaking, I try to make the connections between the different things. And sometimes I find them, sometimes I don't, but that's okay. Because really, ultimately, it's not about what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. It's always going to be about how efficiently and effectively are you interpreting it for yourself, all right? So that's really all that matters, because why else am I doing this except for you guys? So anyway, I hope that I was able to answer your question there, Greg, and to do so in a way that's not going to be too overwhelming. And I hope that you now feel that you have permission to grieve. You have permission to feel like shit, okay? And that does not have to affect your manifestation of your ex back into your life, okay? Your ex-fiance. The two, you can compartmentalize the two things. It's perfectly all right. But first and foremost, look for that connection between you and yourself, your higher self. Look for that love that you already have innately in there for yourself, all right? That your higher self already has. Your higher self is you, by the way. There's no separation. It's the same love. It's always been there. You have it. Tap into it. Once you're able to tap into that love, and part of that part of loving yourself really has to do with giving yourself permission to grieve, even when you feel you need to. Giving yourself permission to go through all the emotions, even if they're terrible emotions and they don't feel that great. That's part of taking care of yourself too. So don't worry about the fiance right now. Worry about taking care of yourself right now, okay? You're number one here in your personal reality that you've chosen for yourself. You're the star, you're the number one. So right now you need some TLC from yourself, okay? So do those things. Go through your grieving process. Don't be afraid to do it, right? And do nice things for yourself. Be kind to yourself, all right? Watch yourself talk. Work on your sense of understanding how worthy you are, how loved you are, how deserving you are of everything that you want, so that you don't feel the need to have anyone from the outside, any outside source, give that to you. You don't need them for that. And when you reconnect with that, and again, I said this earlier, maybe I didn't finish the thought, but when you reconnect with that love that you have innately already there for yourself, right? Your relationships that come in then are going to be so much better, so much more enjoyable, so much healthier, so much more long-lasting, all right? That will have a positive effect on every relationship you have from that moment forward. That's why it's so important to make it about yourself, to work on loving yourself, right? Because if you're too focused on somebody else, that means you're not focusing on giving that same love to yourself. And that's where you need to start. That's where you need to begin. And begin right now by giving yourself the permission and loving yourself enough to grieve and to feel like shit for a little while, okay? And that will get better, I promise you. All right, Greg, and everyone out there, whoever needed to hear this message, I hope that it was good. I hope that this helped you. I sincerely do. And thank you guys for watching, and sorry for all the technical difficulties. I figured out what it was. My phone storage is full. So the last time that it went bleep, it went out. I have all the videos I do for you guys. Apparently, they still live on my phone, so I need to take them off my phone. So my phone's been going like, stop, it's full, I'm I'm stuffed. No more. So that's what's been going on. So I need to organize and clean up my phone, because I record these on my phone. So anyway, thank you guys for watching and for listening to my long rambling message here. If you are new and you like this video and you like the cut of my jib and you haven't hit subscribe yet, please do so now. And I talked about some sources I'm going to give you. So there's going to be a couple of links. There's going to be one book that I want you to check out, and it's Conversations with God by Neale Walsch. I'm getting his name wrong. He's here somewhere. Donald Neale Walsch. Anyway, you guys will know. And it'll be correct in the description box. And also there's going to be a link to a website for you, Greg, and for anyone who's dealing with understanding death and dealing with somebody that you love having passed over. There's a great website that years ago I discovered. It's still there. It's chock full of amazing information. It's called near-death.com. And it's this guy, it was a labor of love for him, I think. Many years ago, he decided to collect all these near-death experiences and to look at it through all these different lenses, all these different religious lenses and different philosophies that people have carried throughout history. Anyway, there's pretty much anything that you can think of that having to do with the spiritual concept of death and people's personal experiences of near-death experiences and what they witnessed and the connections between all their different experiences. It's an exhaustive collection. It's an exhaustive site full of amazing information. So I want you to get into that. I'm dropping the link down below for that. So check out the description box, okay, and you'll have that information. Conversations with God, book 3 especially, there's a bit about death there. So, check that out, but actually read all the volumes because that's an amazing work as well. All right. So, and if you're interested in coaching, again, you can find the link for that down below. If you want to join the Facebook group, link is down below. Everything is down below. Okay, guys. Thanks for your question, Greg, and thanks for watching. And until next time, I'm going to actually clean up my phone now.